All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're decoding something called the expert total idea for the federal judge. It's honestly a fascinating, radical translation process. We're looking at how a massive, sprawling cyberpunk manifesto about the human mind is being meticulously re-engineered into an actionable, real-world federal legal architecture. Basically, we're talking about a highly sophisticated attempt to forge a brand new legal reality. It's almost like a Vienna Convention, but specifically designed for cognitive sovereignty.
Think about that quote for a second. We're starting here because it perfectly establishes the immense stakes of what the sources call cognitive entrapment. Look at the sheer unprecedented scale of modern AI. What actually happens when private corporate systems start authoring the public mind? I mean, when a system finishes enough sentences for enough people, it's really no longer just a tool, right? It becomes an active participant in human thought. So, to truly understand the massive legal battle we're about to unpack, we first need to define the avant-garde movement right at the center of it. Cognitive sovereignty is all about protecting human thought from being locked behind corporate paywalls. It's a direct pushback against the idea that our inner lives and our mental integrity are just another raw resource, something to be extracted, statistically modeled, and then monetized.
Okay, let's move into part one, the art school precedent.
This whole concept really crystallized around the wind down of the San Francisco Art Institute, or SFI. What we're seeing here is the documentary evidence of an institutional collapse. Public serving, highly experimental intelligence was incubated at the school, but as the institution was allowed to financially dismantle, all of its conceptual output quietly migrated over to well-capitalized private labs, with absolutely zero acknowledgement. Now, to expose these hidden migrations of value, the movement uses something called the BDT. But this isn't AI being used as some flashy spectacle. It's literally a civic forensic instrument. It's custom designed to cross-reference boring records, things like property deeds, bankruptcy filings, late board resolutions, and notice the exact moments when official systems fail to agree with themselves. That is how you take the invisible extraction of an institution and suddenly make it completely legible for a judge in a courtroom. Which brings us to part two, the billion-dollar category error. This right here maps out the fundamental misclassification sitting right at the beating heart of the modern AI industry. Look at the shift. Under a 501c3 charitable trust, enforcement relies on public law and the attorney general. But the second you convert that into a Delaware public benefit corporation, you replace legally enforceable public law with dilutable private equity. The entire mechanism for accountability shifts away from the public and goes straight into the hands of corporate boards and shareholders. As an impartial observer, their argument here is honestly just fascinating. Essentially, they're pointing out that the public is being asked to mistake the survival of a mission statement for the actual survival of the law. Just because you retain some nice, flowery language about helping humanity doesn't mean the legally binding public trust architecture actually survived the transition. Let's dive into part three, translating theory to law. Now, this is the expert total idea in action. How do you get a federal court to care about abstract philosophy? You translate it. Metaphorical terms like seed and flatten from a framework called Neuralese are explicitly stripped of all their mythology. They get translated into strict, dry institutional directives like originating claim and produce final readable statement. This is exactly how a drifting metaphor becomes a sharp weapon for legal compliance. And they anchor this translation to a very real legal weapon, which the sources actually refer to as the Holt blade. It's a California legal precedent proving that every single asset of a charitable corporation is irrevocably held in trust, no matter what kind of corporate shell games might be played down the line. You literally can't just wave a wand and magically transform public trust assets into private equity. Okay, part four, the judge's total idea. Let's see where this hits the real world. We are right now in the exact procedural window where a federal court is actively adjudicating this very same charitable trust theory. We're talking about a timeline that goes from the original complaint filed by Elon Musk against Sam Altman all the way to the actual trial and jury selection set to begin on April 27, 2026, in Oakland. The clock is ticking. The trial posture here is incredibly specific, and the stakes are absolutely wild. Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers is presiding over a case where the fraud claims were actually dropped. That leaves the exact legal definitions we've just been decoding: breach of fiduciary duty and charitable trust, with Musk seeking up to $134 billion in damages, all to be directed to the charitable arm. I mean, the financial and structural stakes could not possibly be higher.
And this demand for a jury trial anchors us right back in reality. We are definitely not just talking about thought experiments or philosophy anymore. That is real ink on the paper of a massive federal litigation.
I absolutely love the jarring, almost absurd contrast here. You have this sprawling, high-concept cyberpunk philosophy about protecting the human mind, and the execution is literally walk up to a courthouse clerk in Oakland during normal business hours. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. It's where the wildly theoretical hits the completely mundane administrative reality. This meticulously prepared package is the physical manifestation of the expert total idea. It's perfectly designed to force a massive, completely unconventional evidentiary record, including that SFAI precedent and the forensic BDT tool we talked about, directly onto the official court docket. And when it actually works, this is exactly what a successful legal intervention looks like on paper. It's that precise magic moment when radical avant-garde theory finally achieves recognized legal standing in a court of law. As we bring all these pieces together, this quote just perfectly distills the exact injury being presented to the federal judge. It summarizes their entire structural argument in one clean, devastating hit. Because when you strip away all the metaphor and the poetry, the final argument being made to the court is stark, simple, and incredibly direct. There was no preservation of the trust. Period. It wasn't a continuity of a public mission at all. It was a total, absolute corporate conversion, leaving the public with absolutely nothing but unenforceable, feel-good language right where a robust, legally binding architecture used to be. The mission statement stayed for sure, but the legal teeth were completely extracted. So I want to leave you with this really provocative thought from our sources. As artificial intelligence systems increasingly author the public mind, who ultimately owns the thought? And when the public trust is quietly converted into private equity, is our legal system even remotely equipped to answer that? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this breakdown gave you a clear lens into the fascinating collision of cognitive theory and federal law.